I had given up all my preparations just to go to another country. But my girlfriend, who had faked amnesia, was still warning me with a cold face to pack my bags and get out of our house because her boyfriend was coming over and he would get jealous. I didn't even look up, just said softly, "Okay." She didn't doubt it for a second and then said, "Don't lie to me that you're my boyfriend, because my boyfriend will miss me." I hesitated a bit, but I just nodded silently and didn't explain anything. This time, I decided to change my name and plan to study abroad so that I wouldn't have any feelings left for her. Besides, she likes acting, so I thought I'd play along until the end, since she wants to get rid of me anyway. Then we'll never meet again. It was already night by the time I changed my name. I took a taxi and started searching for tickets on my phone. The process would take a month, but I booked a ticket to Melbourne for the 1st of next month. I sent the confirmation message to the agency. That night, I slept more peacefully than I had in the past month. The next morning, I woke up, had breakfast, and cleared out everything related to Su Mengyao. I threw all the gifts she gave me, the couple clothes, and the old love letters into the trash. Just then, a luxury sports car pulled up beside me, and when I turned to look, it was Su Mengyao. He was driving a car that wasn't even his, and he didn't make the slightest attempt to steer away from me when he saw me, because he knew I would forgive him for that pathetic fake amnesia act. From the start, she never even saw me as her boyfriend, and she had my things thrown out of the villa. I thought I'd end up homeless, but then the next-door landlord suddenly offered me a place for cheap. I felt lucky at the time, but now I realize that was her plan all along. Just to keep me from leaving her. Thinking about all this, I just laughed, and it didn't matter what he had come to do today. The last box. I picked it up and threw it in the trash too. When Su Mengyao saw this, his expression changed, and he asked, "Why did you throw all this away?" I said, "You had amnesia, so how do you remember all this?" He got a bit nervous and said, "Just asked. The past is the past. Now, in the present, I only like the person who took care of me during my accident." I thought to myself, the accident is also part of the act. I gave a faint smile and looked at the man standing nearby, who had an arrogant look in his eyes. I didn't want to talk to him, so I went inside. Su Mengyao found it strange that I wasn't jealous, but he left without saying a word. At night, the doorbell rang. I opened the door, and it was that man, Lu Xinian. He gave me a warm smile and introduced himself, mentioning that he had been living with his girlfriend for a while and really wanted to exchange contact information. I politely refused, but he just grabbed my phone and added himself on WeChat, casually remarking that we would definitely need to stay in touch in the future. Then he, Bella was talking about asking for a few things. I refused his absurd demands, but he kept provoking me, sneering, "If Mengyao dumped you, what could you possibly expect to have?" I tried to ignore him and shut the door, but he forced his way in, acting like I was the one harassing him. Then Su Mengyao arrived, coldly telling me to stay away from Xinian, his boyfriend, and to show some basic respect. With that, he took his arm and they walked off, leaving me all alone. His words kept echoing in my mind, but I closed the door without reacting. The next morning, I was woken up by my phone's ringtone, and as soon as I picked up the call, I was shocked by what I saw on the screen. I hung up immediately, but I was filled with rage. A few days later, I went to my best friend's wedding, and feeling good, gave him the gift I had prepared. They both sighed for a while, then my brother took my hand, and at 10 p.m. I sent an invitation to Su Mengyao. She promised to come. As some of my brother said, "Why not pick her up this afternoon and have a nice long talk? Perhaps she'll eventually recall your proposal and her lost memory will finally return." I remained silent for a long moment, then slowly nodded in agreement. Seeing my faint smile, a look of tension appeared in my brother's eyes. He asked with concern, "What's wrong? Is there some reason you don't want to go through with this?" I was about to answer when Su Mengyao and Lu Xinian suddenly appeared at the doorway. When my brother caught sight of them standing there together, his face flushed a deep, burning shade of crimson with rage, and he stepped forward, ready to teach them a lesson. But I ended up stopping him, simply because I was exhausted, and I told him, "Just forget about it. Everything is going to be over very soon." My brother didn't really understand, but I eventually managed to convince him to go up onto the stage. As I walked back inside the hall, listening to the wedding song playing and taking a long deep breath, I saw that all the guests were already seated. It turned out that only Su Mengyao's seat was left empty. I felt a bit hesitant for a moment, but then I sat down. Throughout the entire wedding, Lu Xinian just kept on He kept interrupting us, sometimes to clear the dishes, other times to serve, and he kept doing exactly whatever he was told. He was pouring out the wine, serving the soup, and being so very attentive. He even fed her the same dessert he was eating, and she ate it without a second thought. Seeing how close they were, I looked away and turned my attention to the stage, but it was hard to eat without chopsticks. Just then, my brother's mother served me some food and said, "Eat up." I didn't really feel like it, but I picked up a dumpling anyway. As soon as Sumengyo saw, she immediately snatched the dumpling from my hand and said, "This is seafood. If you eat it, you'll have an allergic reaction." I stared at the fallen dumpling, then looked at her intently. Her reaction was strange. He started explaining quickly. "Aunt doesn't buy seafood, I've told her many times." After that, he couldn't bring himself to look me in the eye and turned to grab Lucinian. I don't know what he said, but Sumengyo dropped everything and and he chose to go along with him. It didn't really bother me, honestly. I just headed straight towards the bathroom. As soon as I reached the door, I heard a strange sound from inside, so I stopped. I even held my breath. After a while, I went inside and heard a man's low voice in the corner saying, "You're this wild even at a wedding, and you wear clothes like this." Then, a moment later, there was laughter. And the reply came, "Don't you like it?" I looked up at the sign, and my fingers clenched into a fist. A moment later, I heard footsteps, and the bathroom went quiet again. I took one last look at the door and turned back. After the wedding was over, I went downstairs, and as soon as I stepped out of the elevator, I saw a familiar racing car. But I ignored him and started looking for a taxi. Just then, Lucinian suddenly appeared and said that Meng Yao had left early and left the car with him. "Let me drop you off, but chime big scheme but aap bhi man pai paati ha." I wanted to refuse, but he forced me into the passenger seat and drove. He started driving. On the way, he kept trying to provoke me, saying that I knew all along that Meng Yao was faking amnesia. I said coldly, "This has nothing to do with you." He laughed and said, "Why not? I want to be with Meng Yao too. I want to be his fiancé. And even if he doesn't admit it yet, he likes my body and one day he'll love me, won't he?" "उससे प्यार करेगा क्या?" "Are you truly certain about that?" I offered no reply, but simply stared out the window, which only served to irritate him even more. My ignorance made him angry, and seeing the turn ahead, he suddenly swerved the car. With a violent jolt, the car went out of control. When I opened my eyes, I saw shards of glass flying towards me. I instinctively raised my hand, and it started bleeding. With the sharp pain, everything went dark. And Aditinen and I passed out. I don't know how much time had passed. Then I heard a voice say, "Both patients need hand surgery immediately." It has to be done, but there is only one doctor available right now, and whoever doesn't get immediate treatment could have their hand permanently damaged, and Miss Sue also needs to be saved. Hearing this, I tried to pull myself together and said, my hand must not be ruined." Just then, the warm touch of someone holding my hand suddenly pulled away, and through half-open eyes, I saw panic on Su Mengyao's face. She placed her hand on Lucinian's shoulder and said, "Save Sinian first. I'll buying hai adbing sit say naha." Then, everything plunged into darkness. When I regained a bit of consciousness, I couldn't open my eyes, but I could hear the sounds around me. "You took such an incredibly massive risk by doing that, so tell me, what exactly are you planning to do now? You know perfectly well that Xian's hand is far more important to her than her own life could ever be. And yet, despite that, you chose to save Lucinian before her." "Da tanada dasim guja matukilgilam ta ko Su Mengyo said, How could I kill Xian?" He had just woken up at that moment. It was. If I had asked him to save her earlier, my fake amnesia would have been exposed. 20 Aisha, 20 days left. I really just want to bring this game to an end. He told me, "I promise that I will not let anything happen to Shane." The doctor warned his hand might suffer permanent damage within a single minute, yet assured me it would be fine. The other replied, "If he discovers the truth about what happened, there will be absolutely nothing left between you two." Hearing this, his hands began to tremble uncontrollably. He whispered, "He will never find out. I've arranged everything perfectly. In exactly 23 days, the doctor is going to announce that my memory has finally returned, and everything will be back to the way it used to be." A short while later, one person left, but someone else remained right by my side and whispered softly, "Life is truly hard, Cheyenne, but we are getting married very soon. I have even gone ahead and booked the ring." Just wait until my memory returns. After we get married, I'll take you to see the aurora, okay? Do you remember? Remember our third anniversary? What wish did you make on that shooting star? You promised to stay with me forever. I'm so happy. I want to grow old with you. As the anesthesia wore off, I wondered, who is this? Then I remembered my fiancée, Su Mingyao. She took such care of me, calling the doctor every half hour. She was offering me water and gently tending to my feet. She remained right there by my side until I had finally regained full consciousness. All the tenderness she held within her felt just like a crashing wave. However, the moment I woke up, she departed in such a hurry, and I could only watch her go. There was a hint of irony in my eyes. Then I picked up my phone and realized I had been in a coma for 3 days, and the messages were just ads and hospital expense notices. I prayed silently that my name change process would be completed soon. Su Mengyao didn't show up for a long time, but Lucy Nian kept sending me messages every day, which included provocative photos. And fake love was being shown. I didn't open a single message and muted her. A few days later, when I was discharged from the hospital, I suddenly ran into a college student who used to like me. We started talking for a while, and I was feeling a bit happy. Just then, Su Mingyao appeared and pulled me away. Her face was filled with anger, and she asked in a jealous tone, "Who let you get so close to her?" I brushed her hand away and said tauntingly, "You have memory loss and you don't even consider me your boyfriend, so I can talk to whoever I want. You have no right." Saying that, I took the car and drove off, leaving her standing there. A few days later, I finally recovered and tallied up all my hospital bills. The total was absolutely staggering. Just then, an old client reached out and offered me a significant job opportunity. I accepted the offer without a moment's hesitation. When I arrived at the venue, I realized it was a birthday party attended by Su Mengyao and Lu Xinyan. The situation felt strange, but I had already accepted the advance payment. So, I had to do it. When I picked up the camera, Lu Xinyan smiled and said, "Take photos from a low angle, keep the brightness low, and take close-ups once I'm on stage." I took hundreds of photos according to his every demand, but he still wasn't satisfied and kept asking for retakes. My injured wrist was hurting, but I still worked patiently. He started mocking me, saying, "Photographer Gu, you're not as good as people say you are. Let's just stick with the first set of photos. At least those will look decent." People around us started laughing. I composed myself and stood up. Then Lu Qinyan started showing even more attitude. He went over to Su Mengyao, called me over, and said, "Come take our couple photos. Desam de sandara ka kosnera, palm this year." I calmed myself down, picked up the camera, and started shooting. He struck various poses, and finally, he kissed Su Mengyao, which made the whole hall erupt. Seeing all this, Su Mengyao became uncomfortable. He let go of her and looked at me, but it didn't matter to me. I just started looking at the photos. It was as if absolutely nothing had happened. The 4-hour event finally wrapped up at 11 o'clock. I started packing my gear while wiping cake off my clothes. Then Lu Xinyan walked over and asked, "Are you in need of extra cash? I have another shoot. I'm offering double pay. Would you be interested?" I took a moment to think it over, and then I agreed. Dia. He took me to a room on the upper floor of the hotel and started deciding on the angles and content. Just then, there was a knock at the door. But before opening it, he gave me a strange smile and said, "Now the real show begins. Remember to take the photos." He pulled the curtain and hid me in a corner, from where everything was visible through the camera. I stood there silently. At that very moment, he brought a woman inside and they started getting quite close. Through the security camera, I saw it was Sumangya and they were already kissing. I clenched my fist tightly in anger. He didn't even have a clue that I was right there. And those voices shattered me from deep within. I found that I couldn't even manage to breathe properly anymore. Time seemed to have stood perfectly still, and it was exactly 3 in the morning. Once everything went quiet, I stepped out, placed the memory card on the table, and left without saying a single word. There wasn't a single soul on the road, and I just kept on walking all by myself. I honestly have no idea for how long I had been walking. Then, all of a sudden, it felt as if I were back in my old high school, where all those old memories began to surface. Su Mingyao used to take me to the playground after the 1,000-meter race, and the hall decorated with roses was for my birthday, as was the stage where she proposed to me. Everything was exactly the same, but my heart had changed. I went to the teaching building and met the teachers who recognized me because Su Mingyao used to openly pursue me back then. The director asked with a smile, "What brings you here so suddenly? And where is Sumengyo? Are you here to deliver an invitation?" I smiled and deflected the question, saying, "Just here to meet the teachers." I arrived. We spent time reminiscing about the old days. Just then, the director remembered something, took an old yellow diary out of the cupboard and handed it to me, saying, "I recovered this from Sumengyao during self-study class. Now that you're getting married, I'm returning it to you." I nodded, went over to the teacher to greet them, and on my way back, I opened the diary and saw Sumengyao's handwriting inside. Every single page had the same name written over, and it looked like a young girl chasing after a boy. Seeing this, my heart broke and I found myself unable to stop the tears from streaming down my face. With every single tear that fell, it felt as though I was finally saying a long goodbye to my past. By the time the car finally came to a stop in front of the villa, I had managed to compose myself. I swung the door open and realized that Sumengyao had only just arrived at the house. I noticed a distinct red mark on his neck, which immediately brought back memories of last night, so I quickly looked away. He noticed I was crying and, appearing somewhat confused, pulled me into a hug, acting as if absolutely nothing had occurred. My eyes were all red. Then, he offered me a faint, subtle smile. He said, "I truly appreciate all the hard work you did yesterday. I have already gone ahead and transferred your payment. The photos turned out to be quite wonderful. I am sure that you should be satisfied as well." Hearing those words, I was shaken, wondering what kind of satisfaction he was referring to. The birthday photos from last night or something else. He couldn't even figure it out himself, and it got awkward. I stepped inside in complete silence, and I tossed the diary that held all the memories of my youth and my deepest feelings straight into the trash bin. I informed my landlord that I had no intention of renewing my lease for the apartment. He kept pressing me to give him a reason, so I simply made up a lie. He then insisted that I should stay for just a few more days. It suddenly dawned on me that this was all part of Sumengyao's calculated plan to force me back by using fake memories within the next 2 days. I didn't say anything and accepted the plan. 3 days before leaving, I received an unknown call where the Hilton hotel manager told me that my fiancée had booked the main hall for the wedding, but she's unreachable. So the deal. We need to discuss the details. I wanted to decline, but I stopped when I heard the date because that was the same day I had to leave the city. When I reached the hotel, I was stunned by the decorations. Everything was exactly as it had been at the time of the proposal. The manager was just about to explain something to me when he got a call and left. I went upstairs alone and saw the spot where Sumengyao had proposed to me. I was so happy back then, but now everything was over. Just then, the door opened and Sumengyao walked in. Lu Xinyan was with her. Su Mengyao told him that this is where he got engaged to me and he's planning to bring me here and put on a show, pretending to be emotional and acting like his memory is coming back. He was rehearsing today and asked Lu Xinyan to play my role. I was watching everything from behind a pillar and realized what a great actor he is. If I didn't know the truth, I would have been fooled too. A little later, the scene turned romantic and Lu Xinyan hugged her and said, "If you're ever sad, just contact me." Su Mengyao confidently said that in 3 days, everything will be over and he will be mine. Hearing this, I closed my eyes and told myself that I don't want you anymore. 2 days ago, I received news that my name change process was complete and I got my new ID and passport. When I returned home at night, Su Mengyao was waiting outside. He gave a strange reason, saying it would rain tomorrow, so I shouldn't go out. I found what he was saying to be quite amusing, but I simply gave him a polite nod. He clearly thought that I was acting a bit strange, though he could not figure out the reason why. The day I was supposed to leave, I woke up early in the morning, got ready for my afternoon flight, got rid of all my stuff, and kept only 2 pieces of luggage. At 11 ha, the doorbell rang. I opened the door and saw some of her friends. They said that Su Mengyao is recovering and will be fine soon, and since today is our 7th anniversary, they have planned a surprise. I casually asked what the surprise was. They said, "Come along, you'll find out." But just then, they got a call, changed their plans, and said, "Let's meet later." They left, and I watched them go in the rain. Then I went inside, grabbed my luggage, and 10 minutes later, the taxi arrived. The driver loaded the bags, and I left the villa without looking back. As I was walking past the vacant lot right next door, I suddenly heard some strange and unsettling noises coming from inside. I turned to see a sports car that was shaking and rocking quite violently. Feeling startled by the sight, I didn't hesitate for a second. I just quickly hailed a passing taxi. The rain finally stopped at 5 o'clock, and that was when Su Mengyao stepped out of the vehicle. She swung the door wide open and gave a casual wave, while Lucinian followed closely behind her, busy adjusting his rumpled clothes. He wore a rather peculiar expression, but Su Mengyao halted him with a cold, sharp tone, declaring that from the very start, this was merely a 2-month game, and now that the time is up, you must walk away. Seeing the cold behavior, Lucinian fell silent and got off. Su Mengyao drove off without looking back, and Lucinian just stood there. A little later, Su Mengyao reached the Hilton Hotel, but instead of going to the main hall, she went straight upstairs because her clothes were ruined. Before going to the bathroom, she called her friends to discuss the plan, and they all laughed and said that Guxian would definitely come. They were already on their way to pick him up, and she shouldn't worry about the acting. Su Mengyao casually tossed his phone to the side and started getting himself ready. But after half an hour had passed, when he checked his phone, he saw there were more than 20 missed calls waiting. His heart started racing. He called back, and his friends told him that the villa door hadn't opened even after knocking for a long time, and his phone was switched off too. Hearing this, his mood soured. He said, "Maybe I'm asleep," and asked them to take the spare key and check. Then he got ready himself, and he came downstairs and met the manager. When the manager asked about the decoration, he approved it quickly. But when the manager casually mentioned that the setup was perfected with the help of his fiancée, Su Mengyao's expression changed, and she asked Uncle Lu, "Who told you to contact him?" It was a surprise. The manager said in a panic that they couldn't get in touch, so they called me, and I understood all the details. Su Mengyao was shocked to hear this, as her entire plan had been ruined. Just then, her phone rang again, and her friends panicked as they told her that I was missing. The villa was completely empty, and I had left with my belongings that morning. Hearing this, Su Mengyao felt numb, and she suddenly remembered that a taxi had arrived in the afternoon, but she hadn't paid any attention to it. The manager gave her the box I had left for her. When she opened it, there was an engagement ring inside along with a small pink button. Seeing that button reminded her of something from 3 days ago. I remembered when Lucinian complained that the buttons on her clothes had broken off. As soon as I put it all together, Su Mengyao's face turned pale and she realized that I knew everything. She immediately grabbed her car and drove like a maniac, running several red lights to get home. But there was a fire in the next door villa. He went straight inside and started looking for me everywhere but found nothing. His friends were also panicked and said they didn't find anything, and even after checking the records, my name wasn't found anywhere. Hearing this, Su Mengyao was completely devastated. He tried to call me, but there was no answer, and all his messages were rejected. He just stood there as if everything had ended, while his friends tried to console him, telling him to calm down. He has just gone somewhere, but his heart felt completely empty. It's not too late yet. We can still find him. Hearing this, Su Mengyao seemed to snap out of it, and he immediately messaged his secretary and asked her to trace the location. An hour later, he received the reply that Mr. Gu's phone had been found in a dustbin at the bus station and the passenger list was being checked. Upon hearing this, Su Mengyao couldn't hold back and rushed over immediately. As soon as he picked up the phone and unlocked it, he saw that all the social media accounts had been deleted. The contacts were empty too, with only one name remaining, Lucinian. Seeing this, her heart sank, but gathering her courage, she opened the chat, which was filled with daily videos and messages from Lucinian. They were full of taunts about how Guxian was tolerating his fiancée's behavior and that they would be divorced within 3 months of the wedding. Reading all this, Su Mengyao was furious and went straight to Lucinian. Upon reaching home, she saw that Lucinian was packing his bags. Seeing her, he laughed and said, "Can't you bear to let me go? If that's the case, then kiss me." I'll stop. Hearing this, Su Mengyao slapped him hard, causing him to fall to the ground. She threw the phone in front of him, her eyes bloodshot with rage. Lucinian understood everything and, out of fear, began to explain. But Su Mengyao was no longer in control. She called the bodyguards and ordered them to choke him. Lucinian's condition worsened due to suffocation. His face began to turn blue,